we've got some real issues. Is anybody here happy with the Abbott government?
Yes.
What a great guy he turned out to be, eh? Let's log the Franklin, let's do everything. That's a good stuff. How about the Campbell-Newman government? Has anyone been paying attention to things like the land legislation? Look, I've got a whole presentation here. Has anybody seen my recent presentation that I did in Brisbane?
Yeah. Is it the one on the front page of your website?
Yeah, most of you have seen that, so I don't need to go through it again. That's good. I don't need to do that presentation here. That's good. All right. I only brought this laptop in case people wanted information on Gaza or anything like that, to go into the Khazar thing a little bit deeper or anything like that. The whole world, because what was on that presentation was kind of like the elevator version. I'm doing a 3 or 4 hour one over in Perth in May, which will get video, which will connect all the dots that were left out of that one. I probably should have waited until I'd done that and posted it, but anyway, I didn't. So, the art of your life is the problem. People have forgotten the art of your life. This is a lot of what Ben was talking about as well. When we're looking at all of the issues that we face, we're always looking for remedy within the fiction. A lot of you have listened to my show, yeah? You know I'm always talking about legal fiction, where crime comes from and all this sort of stuff. It comes from legislation. People just write laws and suddenly it becomes a crime. And we're always trying to find a way through that. And we're not going to do it. Everything that we talk about, I mean, I can reduce this talk to 5 minutes because everything that we're facing, every single problem that we face as a species on this planet comes from government corruption. Every single thing. Whether it's corporate rape of the environment, whether it's fluoride in the water, whether it's Fukushima, it's all from cutting costs and all this sort of stuff. The monetary system itself is in place because of government corruption. Everything stems from legislation that's put in place by governments. That's it, that's the bottom line. Every single problem we face, be it wars, be it whaling, be it loss of rights, loss of food, fluoridation, vaccination, chemtrails, all of it. That's the thing. And all of that exists because we don't know who we are. That's really where the focus has to be. That's why doing what we're doing today is more important than writing letters to people. It's more important than going on the street and protesting. It's getting to know each other and breaking down the barriers with each other. Because if we have a community that respects each other, we can stand up and change the world in a single day.
Yeah.
We can. We can. See, everything, they give you all this stuff to point your finger at. Even what I do in that talk, what I was doing in that talk, I didn't really point the finger at anyone. I said, well, look, the Khazars are doing all this bad stuff. They are. It's to create this scenario. You can't blame the people, the Khazars, you can't blame the Jews, you can't blame any of these people that are doing all this stuff. They're all programmed. The thing with the Jewish people and the Khazar people, the reason they're so defensive and they're so they label everything anti-Semitic and it's so hard to get through to these people, is because if you look at the study of Jewish history, it only commenced 250 years ago, and these people use the basis of their history is the Bible. Right? This is a book that tells you the world was created 5,000 years ago, and the Jews are God's chosen people. And this is the basis of their history. This book is learned before any other book in Jewish education. They don't even adhere to the Bible. These are Jews. They go to the Torah and the Talmud and all this sort of stuff. They laugh at Christians, but they go to the Bible because that's the only place they can find a history of their people. And that's what they base their history on. And they're taught that from when they're 7 years old until they graduate. So you can't get through to these people. They think that's real. They really do. This isn't a history book. So you can't blame any of this, any of the stuff. There's so many problems we've got. I mean, all of our society, every problem that we've got in our society is because people measure themselves by parameters that are given to them by somebody else. And we've all got stuff with each other because we're kept in a state of scarcity, we're kept in a state of shortage, we've all got to exploit each other the whole time. That's what it's all about. You've got to make money, you've got to pay to be alive. That's what it's about. So we're kept in a state of exploitation all the time. And so people rip each other off. People have stuff with each other, people have fallouts with each other because they judge themselves poorly, because they judge other people poorly, because they're infected by what I call the psychic pathogens that infect people's minds. The economic pathogen, the social pathogen, and the religious pathogen. They infect people's minds, they judge people wrongly, they judge themselves poorly, and it keeps us all divided. And that's the whole cause of the problem. So all the things I can go through and start talking to you about word magic, how the word works, how the language works, how law works, things like Mark Partellic. I'm trying to find a way through the fiction. Ultimately, the key word is fiction. It's all fiction. We made the whole thing up. The whole thing. This whole system is just an idea that somebody had. This is the way the world has to be. And we're taught through the education system that this is the way the world has to be, and we go along with it. And we never step into our own power. As far as learning the legal system, people like Mark Pitalik, people like all the free man people that go out and they tell you all this stuff that you should do, all you really got to do is know yourself. All that stuff's fiction. It really is. All they're doing, the best thing they're doing is they're exposing the fiction for you. But ultimately it comes down to here. There are only two words that I'm interested in the whole legal system, and that's sui generis. Sui generis means I am unique, I am one of a kind. I am absolutely unique. Therefore, I have no peers, therefore I cannot be judged by the laws of my peers. I have no peers. I'm a completely unique expression of God's creation. That's what I am, that's what everybody is. And I go through so many talks where I talk about what you are. I finish every show with In Lakesh, which means I'm another yourself. What your body is. I say this to people so many times. I think it's really important. If you can really understand what you are and what your body is, and understand where your consciousness comes from, it really, really breaks down a lot of barriers with people. It really does, because the simplicity that if you took a kidney out of my body and put it in your body, suddenly you would start experiencing me, explains a huge amount. Okay, it isn't because the kidney has memories, because the kidney is tuned to a frequency. This is a biological computer that downloads a frequency that exists out here in the field. This is a single consciousness with all of these different biological computers downloading separate frequencies, viewing the world from a completely unique perspective that is their own. But we're given all these parameters. We never see that. We never see ourselves as perfect because we have our own unique perspective, which is what makes you who you are. That's the only thing that makes you different from everybody else. You may look differently or whatever, but your perspective is unique to yourself, and it's perfect the way it is. That's what you're here to be. That's what you're here to have, that perspective of reality that you've got. That's the information you're here to collect. When you can really realise that about yourself, you can see it in everybody and all the barriers break down. But we don't see it that way. We measure ourselves by parameters that we're given by a society, which is someone else's idea of reality. And it's about how much stuff you have. It's about how much money you have, the possessions that you have. You don't own anything. Nobody owns anything. You don't own anything. The Earth's been here for 4.6 billion years. It's going to be here for another 100 billion years. You're here for 50 or 100. You don't own shit. You're just the custodian of a little thing for a while. As I've often said to people, I'm the custodian of these glasses. But if I won't leave my home because I'm too scared someone will steal my glasses, then the glasses own me. You know, if I won't leave my house because I'm too scared someone will break into it, the house owns me. You don't own the house, you don't own the land. And if you're in Australia, you don't own the land anyway. I was talking to somebody over there before. The deeds of titles in Australia are all changed. Nobody owns their land in Australia. You're listed as tenant on your land. What you own is a mark on a map. The government can come and take your land anytime they want to, and that's what they're doing to this country, and that's why we need to pay attention. There's all the things they're doing, coal seam, gas mining, what they've done to the Darling Downs. Is everyone aware of what's going on with the Darling Downs? You're going to turn it into a coal mine. This is Australia's food bowl. This is some of the most fertile farming land in the world. They've already sold most of it to China, and it's been earmarked for coal mines. This is what the Vlad legislation is all about, the anti-bikie laws. The anti-bikie legislation has nothing to do with bikies. It's about controlling crowds, crowd control. Any more than 3 people, 3 or more people. All they've got to do is name your organisation as a vicious lawless association, which could be any league, club, business, corporation, whether registered or unregistered, legal or illegal, and any organisation the government names. All it would take will be for some police officer to join a lock the gate meeting, have a lock the gate sign on his car, infiltrate a group, go and start violence against the mining company, and suddenly all the people with lock the gate on their fence are part of a vicious lawless association. They can all be put away without trial. This is where they're going. This is what they're going to do. So yeah, we've got to pay attention. So what we've got to do is realise our sui generis status and put down all that stuff with each other. We really do. We've got to stop all of this rubbish of our society, how we judge each other. We judge our neighbours by what they wear, what they dress, what their beliefs are, what they've been fed, how much they've ripped us off, how much we've ripped them off, whatever. Any mistakes anybody's made, it doesn't matter what anybody did from this point. Back then, that's back then. It doesn't matter if someone ripped you off. They did so because they weren't given an even playing field. They're forced to live in a pathological society whereby people have to pay to be alive. It's ridiculous. got no problem with using money to pass around to each other, but the fact that if you don't go and exploit somebody else or exploit the earth or do some rubbish that you don't want to do, you'll die. Because you'll have nowhere to live, you'll be kicked out on the street. It's ridiculous. And all of this is because of legislation that's put in place by governments that exist because we're divided from each other. That's the thing. You know, people say they're going through all this stuff with some of the free man people, and they're saying, well, you don't pay your rates and all this sort of stuff. That's all very well if you can get away with it, but what you need is the whole society to do that. The whole community to do that. And they're not going to do that until you start respecting each other, you know. We all know each other, we all know people in our community, we don't know our neighbours, we don't know the people right next door. Because if we got stuff with them, well, they got stuff with us, you know. And it's programming, So this is what they've done. And even with big cities, I mean, multiculturalism, isn't that a beauty? I was speaking to Remy, where's Remy? I was speaking to him earlier on about multiculturalism, what they've done. By bringing all these people from Turkey, and all these people from China, all these people from other countries, it's all great, I've got no problem with anyone. But then they get here and they put them in the Turkish community, and the Chinese community, and the Greek community, and all these communities are divided from each other. It's a little world war going on in the suburbs because they all come from European countries that generally don't like each other. They all come here, they get handouts from the government, so all the people who live here hate all the immigrants because they're all getting these benefits that they're not. But the immigrants don't know that. They just think, hey, it's great, I've come here to a lucky country and everything's being looked after for me. And then you try to organise society and say, look, the government's ripping us off, we need to do something about the government. And all these immigrants go, no, they help us, they're great, this is a great government, you try going to Czechoslovakia. You know? So, this is why, divide and conquer, this is the way they've done it. This is why multiculturalism's done this way, why everyone's kept in little pockets and they're all given benefits that the locals don't get. So it creates this animosity. Keeps everyone at each other's throats, keeps the society divided. And it's all bullshit, it's all stuff. It's just ridiculous. It's programs, you know. We've got some serious issues. What we've got to do, I've actually got a barrister coming over to lunch tomorrow. I don't know if you went to the Freedom Summits, but there was a guy there called Jerry, who's a barrister, and he's coming over to lunch, and we're going to talk about a class action against the Queensland government. And not only that, but a class action against the Australian government, because we've got to take it further. What we've got to do is we've got to realise what our position in the food chain is, okay? We're the top of the food chain, that's it.
Yes.
You know, even under their law, which is all based on God's law, it says in their Bible that they use to base their legal system on, it says God created man, gave man dominion over the earth. That's all you guys, that's us. Okay? Man created society, society created government, government created statute and law to manage our infrastructure for us. And all these people are doing is putting in place legislation which impedes our ability to be all that we can be and experience the art of our lives. They're all in abuse of office, all of them. Every single politician in this country is in a state of abuse of office. But we have to stand up and do that, and we're not going to be able to do it if we don't have a united community. Now I can stand up and say this, and I can accuse these guys of breach of trust and abuse of office. I can do what I can, but not if I don't have the community behind me. That's the thing, you know. And that's not going to happen until people put down all this stuff. This is why I go through so much to try to explain about the body computer and what you are, why you are a unique expression of creation. You know, we're all taught to view ourselves as a particular thing. What we look like, what we do, how we dress, you know, we do our hair a certain way, we look a certain way, we look in the mirror and we go, okay, that's acceptable according to the social parameters that I've been taught to believe is beautiful, you know. But you're beautiful just by being here. This life is beautiful. Your expression of your art of you is beautiful. What about that? It isn't about all this other stuff. It's about you. You know, what your art is. You know, if you're a ballerina, how you dance, that's your art. But what about how you stand normally, how you walk down the street, how you express yourself, how you smile, how you interact with people? You know, this is art. This is you. You're a living work of art. That's what you are. And you're absolutely perfect at being you. No one can be you better than you, and no one can have the perspective of reality that you've got. So why would you consider yourself to be anything but perfect? And when you can see that in yourself and see the beauty of that, with all of your physical defects you may have whatever wrong, but that's okay because you're here to experience it from that perspective. And that's okay. It's okay. It's just that you're scared other people will judge you poorly because of what you feel your defects may be. It's just stuff. It's a program. It's rubbish. You know, you're all beautiful at being you, and you're all perfect at being you. Why would you consider yourself to be anything but perfect? It's because you've got these three pathogens and these parameters that you're delivered that are not yours. You've been given someone else's idea of reality, and that's how you judge yourself. If we can see through that, suddenly all the barriers break down, and I look at everybody. I go, wow, that's another expression of me, seeing the world from that perspective. And it's a beautiful thing. Suddenly all the barriers break down, and suddenly you go, if the government comes to try to do stuff to you, you go, well, hang on a minute, I'm sui generis. If you can show me that I'm not sui generis, and show me that you have a right of ownership over this vessel that my consciousness inhabits, we can move forward. Otherwise, I believe you have a legal system in which slavery is illegal, and right of ownership over anybody is not allowed in this country. If you're choosing to exercise a right of ownership over me, I need you to show proof of claim of my non-sui generis status under your own legal system. Then we can move forward. If there's no injured party in my actions, how can you claim any right of ownership over me or anything I do? That's the thing. You understand that? That's the only way to approach any of this. But you try doing it on your own, you might get in trouble. They'll take you out, they'll tase you or whatever. You can't do this with a cop on the side of the road, by the way. These guys aren't very smart. They've lowered the IQ, the induction. There was a guy in New South Wales in 2012, took out a legal case against the New South Wales Police Commission because they refused entry into the police force because he scored too high on the aptitude test, right? He took them to court to try to say, hey, what's going on? And they said, no, we're going to uphold their decision. And the New South Wales Police Department said that a score of 27 on the aptitude test is ideal for a police officer. That's an IQ of 104. So there's no point trying to argue law or philosophy or anything with these guys. They're not very bright. Usually they come from broken homes with chips on their shoulders, and they like to hurt people. You don't get friendly police officers around very much anymore. So it's not good to argue with these guys. But if you're ever dragged into a court system, or if you're ever in a legal situation, understand that you're sui generis, and don't ever let them get past that point. Always establish your sui generis, who you are. I am sui generis. That's who I am, and we need to go past that. I need proof of claim that I'm not before we can go forward, because otherwise it's slavery. But you need the whole community to do this. So you've got to start being a shining light in your community and leading by example in all that you do. Now, there's so much that's been done to us to keep us locked down and keep us fighting amongst ourselves, to keep us from never ever addressing the real issues, because we never see it as being what it is. We always see it as something external to ourselves. You look at the government, you think the government's corrupt, the coal seam, gas mining, the fluoride, all the stuff they're doing, that they are doing. Really, what we are doing is we are not stepping into the power that we have and holding our trustees accountable for their actions. By pointing out to them that they are trustees, we're sui generis. If you seriously think that we're going to allow you to destroy the water table because you wrote rules on a piece of paper, you've got rocks in your head. Where do you get the authority to write those rules on a piece of paper? You get it because we voted you into office to manage our infrastructure for us. You see what I mean? If the whole community stands up and do this, they don't know where to go. And if we can start this class action and hold these people in a state of abuse of office, we can dismiss the whole lot. But we need the people to stand up with us to do it. You know, we might have a chance here of dismissing the entire Australian government and the entire federal government. Although now the TPP has been signed, it's going to get a little tricky. Does anyone know the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement?
Yeah.
They got signed 2 or 3 weeks ago. Basically turns the whole Pacific region into one big department store. And we've got all this stuff to deal with, folks. Fukushima, Ben was talking about before. Fukushima's the elephant in the living room. Fukushima's pumping 300 tonnes a day into the Pacific Ocean, possibly 1,000 tonnes a day into the Pacific Ocean. And what it's doing into the air, it's up to, it's at least 10 times, possibly 24 times as bad as Chernobyl. And it's been going completely uncontained for 3 years now, since April 11, 2011. So this is, our government's not even talking about it, the media's not even talking about it, it's going to take us to do it. But we've got to realise who we are, and we've got to rein these public trustees in. So we need to have a united community. Meetings like this are the go. There's another thing I want to, I've got a project that I'm going to launch this year called the Full Circle Project. I'm trying to gather funding for. I'm not asking them for money. And part of the things I want to do with that is the Urban Agricultural Cooperative. Now, anybody here who's growing organic food, and Paul would know where to find these people, I'm sure. If you've got land and you're growing organic food, what we're suggesting is you can put in 3 garden beds on your property, so that you can. And the idea is to keep one for yourself and to put 2 beds into a cooperative to sell to the community. Okay. And if you can get like 10 families to do this, or 10 landowners to do this in the local community, and you can get 1 garden they keep, 2 they put into the cooperative, then all the money you get from the cooperative from the sale of the food gets put into a fund, and you start your own bank. Okay, you start your own bank, and then everybody who shops at the cooperative or contributes to the cooperative gets a little card whereby they can get loans from the bank at 1%. Gets you out of their banking system, gets you into a cooperative bank of your own, a community bank, called the Urban Agricultural Cooperative. Things like this, start pushing the limit and pushing the envelope with your local councils. Start doing things in your community that benefit the community. You're going to step on the toes of the council, and then get the council to explain to you why they believe they have jurisdiction over you. Councils don't have any jurisdiction. I know people, they're coming and repossessing people's houses because they're not paying their rates. I believe it's because the people aren't asking the right questions. The councils have no legal authority at all. Councils aren't local government. Councils are supposed to be a group of respected community representatives that we put in place to liaise with government for us. Okay, but these guys have passed themselves off as local government, and they're writing bylaws. All of them are illegal. All of them. The thing is that we don't approach in the right way. If a council member comes to you and asks you for rates, before you refuse to pay your rates or don't pay your rates, ask the council member to show his jurisdiction to you. Okay? Ask him to show, just call him out. So if I'm calling you out, I don't believe you have the authority to charge me rates. I don't believe you're a representative of local government. Make sure you say you mention government. I don't believe you're a representative of government. So you want him to show him, or show you, in the form of an affidavit, that'll be in a signed affidavit, bearing his name, showing proof of claim that he's a member of government. Because he's not. And if he can't show you that, and say, if you cannot present this information to me, I will take legal action against you for impersonating a member of government, which carries a mandatory 5-year jail term. Try that first, straight up. So if you can show me proof of claim that you're a member of government, show me not just a letter to say, of course I am, because it's got a fancy letterhead on it. Show me the chain of command. Show me that you're a member of government. Because they can't, they're not a member of government. Remember we were going to have a referendum last year to give councils, local councils, constitutional recognition? This is because they have no constitutional recognition, because they're not local government. State government's as local as it gets. And if the whole community knows this, and the whole community challenges them on this, stands up and says, we want you to deliver to the community an affidavit showing that you are a member of government, what can they do? There's nothing they can do because they're breaking the law. But again, you do this on your own, and it's a game of hot potato. You'll ask them, they'll throw you something back, and they'll try to bamboozle you with letterheads and words and all this sort of stuff. You've got to keep throwing it back. So it's very, very difficult for one person to do it. You need the community to do it, which is why, again, it comes back to breaking down all these barriers. Respect. It always comes back to here. See, everything comes back to here. They say, when you change the inner world, you change the outer world. And this has been hijacked by the New Age. And everyone thinks if they sit in a little ball of love and light, they can open their eyes one day and it's going to be a new world, there's going to be fairies out on the grass, and it's all going to be wonderful. It's not like that. You've got to change your heart space, step into your power, but then you've got to apply it to the world you live in. You live in a 3D reality for a reason. You've got to apply yourself to it. And don't be afraid of being yourself, and don't be afraid of questioning authority. See here? Do that. Do that stuff. Every single time. Nobody has authority over you. Okay? Nobody. The people that we put in office, we actually have authority over them, but we don't exercise that. So I'm not going to talk as long as Ben either, folks. Ben's a little bit more energetic than me. But you see what I mean, though? Ultimately, that's it, isn't it? Ultimately, that's the solution to everything. It's in here. And it's in here and getting rid of all this stuff we've got with each other. If we do this, we change the world in a day. I mean, I can sit here and give you lessons on philosophy. I can sit here and give you history lessons on the Khazars and all the things that have gone wrong and people to point the finger at and all this sort of stuff. But it doesn't really achieve anything. It just takes people down rabbit holes. A lot of the Freeman stuff just takes people down rabbit holes. You know, like I said, I think the best thing about the Freeman movement is that it's helped people understand the fiction, that it is fiction. It's all fiction, all of it. You know, it's just stuff that they write down on pieces of paper. Like I said, every crime is created by government when they write law. They just write it down. It's law. There's new laws now where it's illegal to take two hands off the wheel in Victoria when you're at the lights. You've got to have two hands on the wheel when you're at the lights. Stuff like this. And waving out of a window is a $141 fine. Tooting your horn, like a bike rider taking his foot off a pedal and stretching his foot, $120 fine. For public safety.
There were 3 drug dealers recently who got stung under the Vlad laws, but they had nothing to do with the bikie gang. But they were stung.
There's a librarian that's been put in jail under the Vlad laws.
Wow.
You know, the Vlad legislation will apply to anybody. They can come and put us, they can name us and say, oh look, this guy's talking anti-government rhetoric, you're a violent lawless association, you're all going to jail. 3 years, no charge of trial. Great stuff, right in Queensland. You know? To keep for public safety, of course, you know. And I got a letter. If you look at the talk that I gave, it's online. If you go to thecrowhouse.com, there's a talk on my homepage. I think it's on the homepage, or it's there in the archives somewhere. It's called Deprogramming the Collective, where I show the letter that Jared Blay wrote to me. I wrote him a letter and said, we're going to hold you in breach of trust. If you don't respond within 21 days and show cause why you shouldn't be held in breach of trust, we're going to do it. And that's what I'm going to talk to Jerry about tomorrow. So, and he just responded. He sent me this letter back exactly 21 days later. Responded, but he said, like, just like, what is this, you know? Like, really, it's guilty until proven innocent. And how do you do that? How do you prove yourself innocent of a crime? If I accuse you of something, if I accuse you of stealing, prove to me you didn't. You can't. Doesn't matter if you haven't got the object, you hid it. You know, I don't have to prove you stole it. That's it. You've got to prove you didn't. How does that work? And not only that, but maybe you belong to some surfing organisation and someone in the organisation did something that you don't even know about, but you're part of the organisation, so you're going to go to jail 2 to 3 years. Because you're part of that organisation. That guy did something vicious and lawless. Now the organisation's been named, you just didn't know it had been named, and now you're going to jail. So it's crowd control. That's what it's all about. It's because when they open the place up for mining, and with all the coal seam gas wells and all the stuff they're doing, all the wells that they're doing down in Bentley in New South Wales, they're really opening it up down there. And once that well goes through in Bentley, just outside Lismore, that will get right into the caldera. That'll be the end of Tweed Valley. That'll open the whole place up for coal seam gas mining. So we're going to lose the Tweed Valley if we don't pay attention and rein these people in, folks. And the only way we're going to do it is through community. We've got to stand up and step above the whole legal system. You know, like we've tried to find a way through the fiction by using the fiction. It's just a meme, it's an idea. The idea that you are not sui generis, the idea that you have peers who can control you, that public trustees can control you, the idea that our elected representatives are actually our rulers. It's bullshit. It's bullshit, and it's a program. It's something the way we're trained to think. You know, and the only reason they get away with it is because we keep having stuff with each other in our communities. We're living in these communities and we don't respond to each other, we don't respect each other. We're always judging each other by what we've done to each other, and sometimes we've done bad things to each other, and people have done bad things to you and they've ripped you off, and we've all been dishonest. We've all had to scrimp and save and steal to be alive sometimes. And it's okay, it doesn't matter. Put it all away. Paint the slate clean. It doesn't matter what anybody did because they were not given an even playing field, okay? We've got bigger issues to deal with. All of this stuff is petty bullshit that's put there to keep people divided. Put it all away. Everybody is a perfect, unique expression of creation. And if we choose to stand in that, We can change things overnight. And that's what I believe we have here. We have an opportunity to do this. Because never before in history has the workings of this mechanism been laid so bare. There's so many things you can go and watch now. The whole history of the Jesuits and the Jews and what really happened in World War II. Has anyone looked at The Greatest Story Never Told? Adolf Hitler, The Greatest Story Never Told. Go and look at that 7-hour documentary. That'll give you a bit of an education. Because history is written by the winners, folks. We don't get the true story. These people haven't told us the truth about anything. What makes us think they told us the truth about World War II? You know? When I was in Croatia last year, the Croatian people told me the greatest time in their history was when Hitler's army came and freed them from their dictator. So, hey, I don't know. I can only go to what the locals tell me. You know? But we're going to put down all this stuff, folks, because we've got some really serious issues here. And we've got to find ways of being able to create initiatives and movements in our community that are going to break down our barriers in our communities. You know, even when you go home, little things you can do. If you're baking a loaf of bread, bake 2 and give one to your neighbours. You know? Even if you don't know them, just do something for these people. Give stuff to people. Give things away. Do things for people. Break down the barriers. Get to know them. Don't judge them by what they look like or what they think. Don't judge them by their shortcomings and the stress they're in because they're programmed. You know, they're not given an even playing field. And it's really difficult. We go there and we try to shout fear at people. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Issues. You know, it's very, very confronting, even with what I've been telling you today about the body computer and even looking at the way the world's run. It's very confronting for people because basically you're going up to Joe Public and you're saying, hey, listen, man, everything that you've done for the last 45 years has been completely and utterly meaningless. Everything that you've worked towards to think you're going to own has been complete fiction. It's been a complete and utter waste of time. The world is absolutely different to what you believe it is. And they go, oh, really? Yeah, you know, this is very confronting for people, you know. And the last thing people want, I've found, is responsibility. People say they want freedom, but they don't want responsibility. And that's what freedom is, unfortunately. Freedom is being 100% responsible for yourself. You know, responsible for your actions, everything you say and do. But if you live your life in Lakesh because you understand who and what you are, you understand what the computer is, the body computer is, and you understand what you're here to do, which is really, I believe, to serve creation. Not serve others at the expense of yourself or serve yourself at the expense of others, but to serve creation. That's what we're here to do, to improve reality by our presence in it, to leave a legacy behind. Even if the reincarnation is real, imagine this one, if reincarnation is real, if you can come here and leave breadcrumbs for yourself next time you come around. You know? It's like next time I come around, I'm sure I'll be attracted to the work of Maxwell Igan. And he's going to tell me all this stuff that I need to know. You know? So it's a good thing, you know, it's a good thing. You know, perhaps it's all about that as well. You know, I think it's the legacy, and I think we've got a unique opportunity in history, folks. We really have. We really have, with the internet and everything that we've got. But we've got to stop pointing the finger and looking for people to blame, because the one to blame is us. If we've got all this information now, and we don't do something about this, then, you know, it's us. And we've got issues like Fukushima and all this stuff that they're not going to deal with until we make them deal with it, or we deal with it ourselves. You know, so we have to get the community united enough to want to stand up and take action, peaceful action. The only action we have to take really is to know ourselves and respect ourselves. You know, who wants to talk about things?
What do you need the community for? Like, what are you feeling like you need us for right now? What can we?
Well, the community, all the community needs to stand up and question the council for a start. The whole community needs to know the stuff that we've talked about today. The whole community needs to understand how the world works. You know, so we need to find a way of getting that information to them. And the best way is to start breaking down the barriers. You've got to start in small ways. That's what I'm saying. If you can make a loaf of bread, make an extra one. Give it to your neighbours. If you're making biscuits or whatever, make an extra one. Whatever you do something extra for someone that you don't know. You know, break down the barriers. Get to know the people right next door to you that you might have stuff with. Now, if you've got stuff with people, it's stuff in yourself that you need to figure out. You know, there was a saying someone said, you know, I don't like you, I need to know more about you. You know, I don't like you, I need to see you more. You know? So.
I got an email from this from my kiddies, and they're saying that the council is actually giving money to get to know your neighbour, street thing.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, there you go. Now you can get paid for it. Even more incentive. Even more incentive. Well, yeah, by the way, folks, there was a recent article in the Lancet magazine. If the council's still trying to talk about fluoride, get a copy of Lancet, which is the most peer-reviewed, well-respected medical journal in the world, where they've recently named fluoride as a neurotoxin. They put it up there with arsenic, lead, mercury, aluminium. Lancet, Lancet. The Lancet. Yeah, they classified fluoride as a neurotoxin. So that's a letter you could write to your council. You could get out flyers and put it in people's letterboxes as well. Well, it's an important issue. I mean, fluoride's terrible stuff. Gets you really going. You what? Can you see what I mean about what I'm saying about community? I mean, I can go through. I can give you a whole presentation about all this sort of stuff and point all these things to all these people. It's not going to achieve anything because the only solution we've got is here. It really is. I really believe this. Hang on, listen to this lady here.
I think it's very subtle. We talk about strong judgment and in that consciousness of one. And I think it's very important that, we're not to judge each other, but we're not really to judge the government because, they're doing what they're doing.
Exactly, they're programmed.
So it is very subtle because suddenly we're in that divided consciousness,
Exactly, they're programmed.
It's not like we're not in a battle, we're not trying to overcome something, there are solutions.
We're in a battle to discover our own power.
Well,
we're scared of exercising it.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain people who are psychopathic. There are. I mean, they're 1 to 3% of the world are born psychopathic. That's just the way it is. And what you've got is that psychopaths are very charismatic people, and they've maneuvered themselves into positions of authority. And when you've got a psychopath who's in a position of power in a government or a business structure, then the morality of the psychopath becomes the morality of the business structure beneath it. This is why we have a sociopathic society, whereby you can have someone come to your house and say, look, I've got to throw you out on the street. It's terrible, it's the middle of winter, you and your family are going to freeze to death, but there's nothing I can do about it, I feel terrible. I'll go home and cry tonight, and I will genuinely feel terrible about it. I've got no choice, because it says on this piece of paper that the books aren't balanced. This is a psychopathic system. So what we need to do is, rather than me throwing you out on the street, they go, well, why would the books, the economic model, be more important than human life? So who put this legislation in place? Okay, we'll dismiss you, and we'll dismiss all the people who support this up the channel, or at least re-educate them. But the thing is, I mean, people are programmed, but it is a psychopathic system. People are programmed to operate within the parameters of a psychopathic system. That's the way it is. This is one of the, when the Crown Corporation was formed back in 1302, here we are pointing the finger, Pope Boniface in the Vatican, who Dante named as the most evil man alive, who bought his way to power, who I suspect was actually a Khazar. I can't prove that, but I'm working on it. Because he put the whole Unum Sanctum Trust into place, the first express trust from which came the Crown Corporation. And this whole system, where was I going with all of that? I lost the point.
Fuck.
But sorry. The biggest threat with the Crown Corporation, when the Crown Corporation was formed, one of the things it did was it formed the East India Trading Company, which went out and just decimated shaman around the world. Actually been mentioned that in Climatica, I think, in his second film, how they killed millions and millions of shaman over a period, because these shamanistic traditions were the biggest threat against the Vatican system. Because the shamans used to weed out the psychopaths. They'd be able to pick them out and say, okay, this kid's got psychopathic tendencies, and they'd make sure they never got to positions of power. So this is one of the biggest threats against the system. Also with shamanism and ayahuasca and all the stuff that people are getting into now, because it opens your pineal gland, you start seeing outside visible light, you start seeing that there is a lot more going on here than what we believe. We're all locked, and this is a whole another, I shouldn't even go down this tangent, because I could be here for an hour talking to you about higher consciousness and the pineal gland and all this sort of stuff, So, but this is why fluoride's in the water. Fluoride calcifies your pineal. That's specifically why it's in the water. This is just to keep you dumbed down and disoriented. It's because it calcifies your pineal gland. That's why when you go and do some ayahuasca ceremonies, it opens your pineal, and you can literally see into the spirit realm. And it's not hallucinations. It's reading energy. You know, like you look at an island culture, like in the hurricane in the Philippines a few years ago. Not the Philippines, in Indonesia. A lot of the people before the tsunami came, and the hurricane came, the people, all the tribal people ran to the high ground, and all the animals ran to the high ground. Because it's instinct. What is instinct? It's higher senses reading the energy field, knowing it's about to change. We should all be able to do that, but we can't, because our pineal is calcified from when we're about 6 years old, from the fluoride in the water. That's specifically why it's done. When the little kids are seeing fairies in the gardens and stuff, they're probably actually seeing into the spirit realm. Kids are being born very, very active now, which is why the doses of fluoride are being so high. That's what it's all about, you know.
Is there a percentage of like I know you did mention fluoride affecting the pineal gland, but is it on a percentage basis? Is there something else that's affecting us? Because I feel like they're not that dumb to just focus on one thing, because we've been attacking them.
Everything that's on the supermarket shelf.
That's what I was just pointing it out.
All that stuff. What's all the stuff that's in the water? Even the air. In the air, the stuff they're spraying in the geoengineering, everything in the supermarket, what's coming out of the television, the electromagnetic signals that people are subject to. This is an electromagnetic, everything you experience is electromagnetic, you know. You touch something, that sends an electromagnetic signal to my brain to tell me I'm touching the table. It's all electromagnetism. This is a computer, it works electrically. You're more of an electrical being than you even are a biological being. When you look at your biology, your body, you're 85% water. 70 to 85% water. Your biology is very, very small. It's mainly water. This is what Ben was saying before about being so important about what you're putting into the food, the intention you're putting in the food, because all water has memory. You know? So there's a real intent here. Think about that. You know, your body's 85% water. All the emotion, all the experience you gather, these all leave your body as electrical impulses which go out and charge the ether, which exists forever like radio waves. And then all the water in your body returns to the groundwater. It takes all of that information into the RAM drive of the planet. And there seems to be a concerted effort to destroy the RAM drive of the planet. So they're really, really trying to pollute the water on this planet. They're going out of control to pollute the water on this planet. Do you not know about the oil find in Cooper Pedy?
Yeah.
12% of the world's oil in Cooper Pedy. They're telling us we need to do coal seam gas for the economy.
No.
I mean, you know, I'm not big on fossil fuel, but we all use oil. We got the world's largest supply of oil right here in Australia. We don't need uranium industry, we don't need coal industry, we don't need coal seam gas, we don't need any of it. And we could still be one of the most opulent countries on earth. You know, if they passed down even a small percentage of the wealth of this country to the people, we would have the lowest cost of living on the planet, because we have one of the lowest populations and we have one of the highest amount of resources on the planet. So we're being stolen from governments. And that's the simple truth. And there's no legal remedy to this. There's no petition you can fill out. There's no you can vote in or vote out. All we've got is to stand up as a community and say enough is enough. We're all sui generis. And we're going to do this because we all respect each other enough to stand up and make a difference. You know? But it's not going to happen until we can respect each other. And it's got to start here. It's got to start with you. It's got to start somewhere. Because that's the only solution. You know, like I said, I can go through point the finger, I can come here and be a guru and give you all lessons in law and all sorts of shit that people do. But ultimately, it's here, folks. The whole thing is here. But you've got to take what you learn in this. If what I'm saying is resonating with you and you really understand what you are and the beauty and perfection of yourself, go and share that with people. Share yourself with people. Be a shining light in your community and lead by example in all that you do so that other people want to emulate that. You know? And question authority in the right way, question in a polite way. See, that's what I mean. You can't hate the politicians for what they're doing. You just got to question them. Well, hang on, I'm sui generis. What makes you think you can do that? You know, and I'm not going to, and even with the class action against the government, I want to do it in sort of a way where I want to just point out to them they're all in abuse of office. And we don't want you to do it anymore. But I don't even want to charge them. I don't even want them to go to jail. I don't care about that. I just want them to stop what they're doing. I just wanted to stop it doing because I'm sui generis. So I can respect you, Jared Blay, as being sui generis as well. I have no authority or jurisdiction over you. If you want to write legislation that you believe can control my life, you're free to do it. But guess what? I'm sui generis. You can't. I'm just not going to go along with it. I don't know who you think you are. If you're going to push yourself on me, well, I'll just hand you over to your own legal system in which it says slavery is illegal under sections 268 and 270 of the Australian Criminal Code. Have a nice day. You know? That's the attitude you've got to have, but you've got to have that with everybody. If people want to be enslaved to this system, that's their choice. They're sui generis too. If they really don't want to be responsible for themselves, that's their choice to do that. If they really want a nanny state, that's their choice to do that. But not me. And I'm not going to allow the water table and the planet and this country to be destroyed. You know, have we got a legal right, a patriotic right? Don't we have a right as a nation, as responsible members of our community, to protect our country and protect our nation? And isn't it illegal under anybody's law to pollute groundwater? So all I'm doing by standing up against the government and calling the government on breach of trust and putting a class action against you is defending my country. And I have a legal obligation to do that as an Australian citizen. That's the approach you've got to have. You've got to have the guts to stand in it. This is why you need community, you know? This is why you've got to put down all this shit.
Max, I agree with everything you say, and I think we've got to start caring about each other.
Well, that's what I've been saying.
Because we're looking at ourselves, because I'm a unionist, and I've come from a situation where we've become vested interest has taken over.
Yeah.
We've become accustomed to feeding up our people like yourself, people like Ben, and standing looking the other way because it doesn't concern us.
Exactly.
So, you know, it's like I've set the bikes up on Curtis Island. I've come from the gas fields, which I'm not proud of, but the reality is people want to stand up the back. Well, it's easy up the back. There's no blood splatter up there.
Yeah.
We got to defend and look after the bikes at the front.
Exactly.
And the women at the front.
Well,
because it's easy to stand at the back, feign a bit of interest. Like, I'm here on the Gold Coast at the moment. I've come from Gladstone through. We've come from Gladstone through years there. I believe there should be 10,000 people here for this talk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I haven't heard so much common sense. I met Paul. I met Alex. I met Matt. There's some wonderful people in this room, right? But we need to be getting critical mass, right?
We do.
Okay, and I come from a football environment. We've just spent 5 weeks in an intentional community. Biggest experience of my life. We met Mana there.
Yeah.
Up on the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah. But see, even when you're working in the gas fields, I don't hold that against you because it's very attractive.
That's
and we've
right.
got to pay to be alive. And you're put in a position where you're in a state of absolute freaking scarcity, but hang on, if I can just go work there, shit, they're going to do it anyway.
That's
Or I
right.
can just go and grab 50 grand and I'm good for a while.
But Max, if
So what do you do?
if we ask you to take the ball and just run straight, 3 blokes can pick you off every time. We need to run in numbers and get behind these guys.
I know, that's
Right.
why it's got to come down to community. That's why I'm saying you've got to put down your stuff with people. You've got to start connecting with your neighbours, folks. Not just the guy around the corner. Guy over the fence, everybody. Everybody, you've got to be a shining light in your community, and you've got to start sharing yourself and sharing a new understanding of yourself with people. You really do, because we've got serious problems and we have to address them.
Sorry, Max,
All the
I've
other
got one more
stuff's
thing.
petty, right?
I was in a car with a few blokes, and there was a hold up. And there was traffic jam. Someone went, "Oh, what's going on?" It should be, "No, I hope someone's all right up there." Rather than, "Oh, I'm going to be inconvenienced for 24 minutes on the highway."
Yeah.
It should be, "Geez, there's an accident up there. I hope someone's okay."
And how would I help?
Program.
We have to go back to
Can I
that.
ask a question? I sort of feel, this is personal now, like this feeling. I sort of feel that every time we want to get into the law structures and fight them their way, I feel like we're entering their trap again. I want to feel like, that's the truth, I've got this gut feeling that we're entering a trap, their big ball of web bullshit, and we're now fighting their game, their way, using their laws against us, against them. What about natural law? When you said polluting the water, that was the first thing that came to my mind. Like taking care of it. You know, the natural law, common law, I don't agree with these new laws and they mean nothing to me, and even fighting them with their own laws, I feel like that's just going to be another 100 years of a
Yeah,
battle.
I know, but we can. All I'm saying is we've got to start somewhere. We've got to present it. We've got to present it to.
Can't we just take it?
We've got to present it to the common people out there in a way that they can understand.
Accept it. Yeah, I agree.
Because I think it's all fiction.
Yeah, I think
it's all fiction. Absolutely, it's all fiction. I'm sui generis, you're sui generis, and it doesn't go anywhere past that. Okay. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, if you think I'm going to let you destroy the water, you got rocks in your head.
What about storming the parliament?
Well, then you start. That's talking language they can understand.
Yeah.
You know, I'll storm the parliament with a class action and get them to show cause why, through their actions of even introducing the blood legislation, through their actions of introducing that legislation, why they shouldn't be held in abuse of office, breach of trust, and prosecuted for attempting to subvert democracy and undermine the rule of law in Australia and human rights violations, and taken to the Hague. You know, if you believe your fiction is real and you're going to try to use your fiction against me, okay, guess what? I'm sui generis, you're a public trustee, and you need to show cause why you shouldn't be held in abuse of office. Because I'm in a state of hardship and you only get your power from me. See, if the whole community does that, where have they got to go? Where have they got to go? And even we are, but that's a language the community can understand.
Yeah.
You know,
just to address that,
and it will scare them. And like I said, I'm going to talk about this with a barrister tomorrow.
Yeah.
So he's the sort of guy. He specialises in prosecuting corrupt cops and stuff. And he's a barrister who puts on a wig and goes to the High Court, right? He puts on a wig and goes to the High Court. So he really wants to make a difference. And so I'm just going to talk to him about it because he's walking that line with 1 foot in the fiction and 1 foot in reality, which is where we have to do it, because that's where we are. I mean, as much as I want to step outside of the fiction, I still have to pay to be alive. I've still got to participate in this community. Otherwise, I can't even come here and talk to you. I have to pay. I've got to use a passport. I've got to do all this stuff. You know, so you know, we've got to do that at the moment because all the people out there that we're trying to educate believe the fiction is real. So if they think we're operating outside the law, suddenly we're like, is this a terrorist group or something? Like sedition? I mean, it's a cell, you know, trying to undermine the country, you know, like you've got any socialists or something, you know what I mean?
That was structured at the beginning to make sure that
we've got a media against us and all this sort of stuff. So we've got to structure it in a way that's smart.
We've got to use the system against the system.
Until people realise that the system's fiction, we don't need it.
Yes.
But for that moment, we have to be 1 foot in and 1 foot out. It's the only way we're going to get through.
Try and convince everyone to throw their passports in the sea and we'll just travel everywhere.
Well, you know, great stuff. Yeah, I had a great story. You know Mark McMurtry?
No.
Anyone know Mark? Gunham Buddy Jackamara?
Mark's over here. Oh, Matt, sorry.
He's got a great story about his licence, so. Your licence. He's got a licence that's expired, right? Because he says he's got a great way he says it. He says that when you're speaking in certain circles, you've got to apply different meanings to different words, right? For example, the example he always uses is a fixture. If you say the word fixture, if you're talking to a plumber, you're talking about a tap. If you're talking to a real estate agent, you're talking about a house. If you're talking to a judge, you're talking about a court date. Okay? So there's 3 different meanings for one word. So if you're speaking in legal circles, you need to always apply legal meanings to the words. So he's got this licence, and the licence is expired. Or his driver's licence, right? He goes, well, he said, the cop says, can I have your licence? And he says, I'll only give you the licence if you acknowledge now that it's my property and you agree to give it back to me. And the judge says, okay, you know, looks at the licence and goes, the licence is expired. And he goes, well, no, it's not, because the legal meaning of the word expired is to not exist anymore. Obviously, the licence does exist. Obviously, the licence does exist because you're holding it in your hand. This is why when your licence is around, they ask you to cut it in half and throw it away. Because it has to be expired, so it doesn't exist anymore. So he says, it does exist, it's in your hand, so obviously it does exist. When I got that licence, I had to apply for it. Now, when you, now the word ply means to bond, as in plywood, right? To ply something. When you put a prefix on a word, it reverses the meaning of the word. Okay, such as normal, abnormal, legal, illegal, original, aboriginal, apply. So therefore it's an unbonded license. Can you read the conditions on the license, please? If you pull out your license, anyone, you got your license here? Have a look at the conditions on your license. Right? See what it says under conditions. What's it say under conditions on your license there?
It says view the terms of use.
Doesn't say anything under conditions. So it's an unconditional, unbonded license. So that would include the condition that you have to renew it.
Just go to the website.
Yeah. Right, so
So you have to do that.
there are no conditions. It's an unconditional, unbonded license, right? That's what he's got on it. Maybe the new one it says go to the website. If you go to your old license with a photo on it, not the new plastic ones. I don't know what they've done with the new plastic ones. I'll have to look at mine. But there's nothing under conditions. I look at mine. Actually, I do remember mine. All it's got is a list of the states under my conditions. That's where it is on the map. But there's nothing there under conditions. So it's an unconditional, unbonded license, which would include the condition that you have to renew it. It's not expired.
Well, I think that one has their conditions.
It has conditions.
Yeah.
Which means you're automatically manual.
Just turn.
No, there's nothing under
Oh,
conditions.
just turn.
The back. No?
No, there's nothing.
Is it the back? At the back there is. At the back? Yeah. It says that.
You must
Class conditions of license. You must comply with those conditions shown on your license while driving. A description of the relevant class of vehicle conditions is shown on your license was provided. Okay. Yeah, so you can only drive that vehicle, that class of vehicle. That's the only condition. There's nothing under conditions. You must comply with the conditions shown on your license. You look at conditions, there's a black dot underneath it. So I guess you've got to be a black dot or something. But it's unconditional. It's an unconditional license.
The racist condition.
Right? And it's not expired because it still exists. But this is what he drives on an expired license. That's what he does. And there's nothing they can do about it. The cops have been told not to pull him over, because he's an original person, he's an original, so he just goes by original law all the time. And that's what I was saying before about you don't own your land. The only way you're going to own your land, if you really want to own your land, what you've got to do is find an original person in the area, and you've got a treaty with them. Because the original people want a treaty with the white people because they want to kick the crown out of the country. We're actually in a really unique position in Australia because when they came here, Governor Phillip or whoever it was, it said in the first charter that original law still stands and that we have to honour the law of the original people. Okay? And they've done it all through word magic, trick them into thinking they're Aboriginal. They're not, they're original. We're Aboriginal because we're non-original. Okay? But they're original, they're the originating people. So it's word magic again. They want native title. Native title, you've got to say you're reclaiming land that was previously held by the Crown. So that makes you're saying the Crown owns the land, and I want it back. So they're tricking them with native title. The whole thing's a trick. It's all, and now they're saying we need to give the original people constitutional recognition. What they're saying is they're not recognised by the Constitution, they're not under our law. Right? And the original people are saying, no, we're not under our law, and we want to take the land back, we want to reclaim the country, but we don't want to take any of the white people's houses, we want you to all keep your houses, and you'll actually own your houses if you're under our law, and the Crown can just fuck off. Because we don't want them. You know? I mean, and you wonder why the original people are so standoffish. I mean, I've got stories where they used to, one of the favourite things that soldiers used to do when they used to come over here was bury kids up to their neck in the beach and kick their heads off. You know? That's what they used to do to these people. And there isn't one original family in this country that isn't scarred by this government. So, you know, but they want us to treaty with them. If you look at your deed of title, anybody here who owns land, go and look at your deed of title. You're listed as a tenant, and what you actually own is a mark on a map. Okay, the government come and take your land anytime they want. But if you treaty with the original people, they will give you your land. You own your land. They don't want it. They just don't want the Crown to have it. You own it to the centre of the earth, to the top of the atmosphere. You know, under their law. You know. Well, I don't believe in ownership that hey they do. So.
Is Gunham and Jerry, aren't they going to the Human Rights Commission in Europe like soon? Is that, do you know any progress on that?
Gunham's in he's in Uluru now, I think, or next week. Yeah, I was supposed to go there, but I'm just going on too busy. There's a lot of stuff over there.
In 1952 in Australia, when my dad came, he reckons that there was still licenses getting handed out to collect ears of Aboriginals, basically out in Western Australia and in Darwin.
When I went to school,
clean of all.
When I went to school in primary school in Adelaide in 1973, there was a flora and fauna book, and they were in the book.
Yeah.
Koala, kangaroo, Aboriginal.
I was collecting ears to get
in the flora and fauna book in 1973, right? I mean, Queen Victoria, when they came here, she thought they were so human, she wanted one stuff and brought back to the palace because they looked so human now. You know? Outrageous, outrageous. These people have been brutalised, But if we treaty with them, they still have the law in the country because even under British law, even under Crown law, the original people have jurisdiction, but they've kept them so divided that nobody knows who the elders are. There's like 30 different nations here, they're all squabbling with each other. They're all programmed into white man's ways. If you even start asking them about their culture, they mention Jesus. So, I mean, it's hard. It's really hard to get them, especially in this area here, because this area is, there's a white man myth called Bunjalung in this area. Northern Rivers and Gold Coast area, they say it's Bunjalung. Bunjalung's a white man's name. It's actually either Githable or Arakul. But there's this whole dispute over who owns this land. Is it Githable, is it Arakul, or is it Bunjalung? And so, who do you treaty with?
They created a division. So
they've done it on purpose. They've done it on purpose, just in these areas. And with the stolen generation as well, they pick people up over in Broome and they bring them to Brisbane and give them to a family in Brisbane and raise them as white people, and then when all the mining things come in, they say, well, you're the traditional owner of this land at James Price Point, will you sign it over to the mining company? They go, yeah, no worries. They've never walked on the land. The people that live there, the original people that are still living on the land, that are fighting for the land, that still hold the law of the land, they're fighting because these guys over here are the traditional owners. But these guys that live there hold the law, so it's been very clever. But when they set this country up, they set it up as a mine, right? AU, gold, Australis, land of the Southern Jumpman, Lear Corporation of the Southern Jumpman for gold. That's what Australia is. Now I actually believe that they knew that when they came here, and that the massive gold fields of Gympie was actually King Solomon's mines. Because the gold in Tutankhamun's mask, that famous mask, all gold has a fingerprint, it has its own DNA. That gold comes from Gympie. And there's two pyramids at Gympie. One of them's been taken over by army. One guy he was excavating under his pyramid. He found tunnels, and then he mysteriously died of a heart attack. And the army was given the land, and they covered the pyramids up and used them for target practice. But there's one on the property next door on McDale's place that's still there. He's a little bit sceptical about it. A little bit nervous about excavating his after what happened to his neighbour. So there's a connection there. And I think that's what they set Australia up for. That's why they've kept the population so low. That's why they've disarmed us all very quickly. Now they're opening the whole place up for mining, and they're putting these lab legislation in place to pick up all the protesters when they really open the place up, which is what they're going to do probably after the Commonwealth Games in 2000. Actually, probably while the Commonwealth Games is on, there'll be huge mining operations starting in the Darling Downs. And all the farmers that try to protest will all get named under the land legislation. They all get shipped off into private prisons without charge or trial. So this is where it's going.
There's more of us.
Well, there's more of us, but we've got to be aware. And we've got to have a community that respects itself enough to stand up and nip this in the bud before it happens. That's why it's all got to come down to here. It's got to come down to respect. That's what we're facing here, folks. Really, we're at the tipping point. We really are. And like I said, it's an opportunity. This is the first opportunity we've had in history for the community to actually stand up for itself. But you've got to know yourself in order to do it. You really do. Don't judge yourself and don't judge other people, and put down all that shit, all that stuff from the past. Put it all away. What's up, Colin?
Yeah, I just want to say that, being from the States, I see the difference a lot between what's going on here and the similarities of what's going on here and what's going on there. If any of you have seen the film Gasland, that actually came from pretty much my backyard in Pennsylvania. A guy named Matthew Fox, who it's Marcellus Shale. They're doing mining there, The issue there that I think you guys have a unique advantage of here is the amount of people there and the amount of people here. Everyone here seems to, I mean, I'm just going by feel, and everybody that I meet seems to be a bit more aware and a bit more willing to actually do something, as long as they know they have support and as long as they know that it's commonly agreed upon, because some people don't care as much about doing it respectfully as others, you know, and some people, they have other ways of approaching it, but coming together as a community, it seems a lot easier here, because nothing, no protest, nothing is going on in the States for all the mining and the drilling that the Chesapeake Bay Energy Company, which is Dick Cheney, going in, stealing all the natural resources from Pennsylvania. Even the Tea Partiers are standing up. They don't care about the water table. They don't even really breach that subject. They just want these companies, private corporations, to pay Pennsylvania for the resources that they're stealing. And nothing is being done. Nobody's standing up, and I believe that it's because the population is so convoluted with people that don't care, and there's so many people that are just willing to grind the gears of that society, that the people who really do care feel so flustered and burnt out that they're not willing to do anything. So I want to say I see a real potential here, much more than I do in the States, for community to really get together and connect with one another. And I really believe that, you know, there's many, many issues that we can be addressing. If we could find a singular one to make a statement, and I mean, to me personally, having gone out to Western Australia and gone several different areas, I see that the drilling and the mining, the coal seam gas, even out in Western Australia, people are just saying this is absolutely ridiculous. The people that pretty much run the town are just people who came from a different country. They have like Lamborghinis, the Sea-Doos, they have private houseboats. They really have no legal authority. They have corporate authority. That's about it. And they're going unchecked because communities aren't educated enough and they're not standing up yet. But I really feel that there's an advantage that you guys have here. So banding together for a singular reason, even though it may not be the only thing we need to focus on, but focusing on one thing to really make a statement to show that you do have the power and you do have the voice to make a change against people that we thought had authority over us. It really is making a statement to them, but mostly making a statement to ourselves that we have the power to be able to do that because we have the numbers. So.
You got to do that. Look, and find an issue that unites your community, that everybody feels passionate about, but then don't approach it through the fiction. Approach it from sui generis. You know what I mean? You've got to step above the whole thing. These are public trustees. You don't have to ask their permission. You have to defend your country. You know, and you have to defend it against all enemies. And people are destroying the water table because they're getting away with it because people believe what they're writing on pieces of paper is real. But they only get that power from us. You know what I mean? This is what it is. So you've got to spread this with your community. You really do. I'll come and do more of these talks. We can bring more people along. I'm happy to actually put together a presentation and do like a 2 or 3 hour presentation if you want, tailor it for Australia.
Yes.
You know?
Come and help you and physically
Oh
start
yeah,
doing
I
things.
love help. I've been fighting this battle for years, and I've been doing everything that you see on the Crow House. Anybody who's seen all my stuff, this is all a one-man show. Actually, the last series of videos I did for the People's Voice TV, I had someone helping me doing the editing for that, which was really, really good. So one person who decides to stand in their power and speak out can make a hell of a difference.
Yeah.
So I don't think any of you can't do anything. I'm a local Gold Coast lad. So
How many visits to your website each day?
between 50 and 130,000.
Yeah!
A lot of people are getting the information, but yeah, it's a unique time. We can make a difference. But you know, we've got to get involved. We've really, really got to get involved. You know, I mean, sure you can support me in what I do, but you can make a difference yourself in what you do. You know, I can't do it without you guys. You know, I really can't. You know, I need the community to stand with me. We all do. We can change the world today. We really could.
Yeah.
You change the whole thing today. Step above the whole thing. It's all fiction.
Yeah.
The whole lot. Legal fiction.
What about an action plan like school? An example, like let's say when you open a business or when you go to do something, you have different areas of things that you want to focus on. Like you want to focus on making money, then you've got your accounts, and you've got someone that's doing your advertisements, you've got someone.
Yeah.
And I feel like,
well, things like
we have some sort of an action.
Well, what I was saying, things like the UAC, like the Urban Agricultural Cooperative. Start some of that, start your own bank.
Yeah.
For a start, get out of that central banking system straight away. If we're going to use your paper, because you know where money comes from, there's all this myth about money, folks. There's all this bullshit about money. People go, fractional reserve banking, people go and deposit their money in the bank, and they get 10 times more, all this stuff. These are all rabbit holes, folks. You know where money comes from? You go into the bank, and you take out a loan, you go $50,000 and you sign it. You just created $50,000. You brought that money into being yourself with your signature. That contract is not a contract. Contracts bear two signatures. This is a promissory note that you created with your signature, your wet ink signature created $50,000. Now the bank says, here's that in my paper. Now because you're using my paper, you've got to give it all back to me because I'm only lending you my paper. I'm not lending you any money, I'm lending you my paper. My paper with these little ink spots on it. It's got to have those same ink spots on it when it gets back. Plus, because you're using my paper, you've got to give me more paper back as interest. That's what it is. It's a fucking scam, okay? Fractional reserve banking, this is a rabbit hole. No bank ever lent 1 cent to anybody. You create the money yourself because you have value. They don't. We could eliminate banks altogether. We could just go to a machine, write out a promissory note, slip it into a machine that gives us the government-approved paper. We can go and spend it and the deal's done. That's where money comes from. I just wanted to clear that up.
In ancient Athens, Pythagoras had created this algorithm to basically put a number on everything, and they kicked him out.
It's an incredible program. It's an incredible program. You know, it's an amazing program. I call it a pathogen, an economic pathogen. You get a tribal culture that's never used money. They get along on this island with all these other tribal cultures, and everyone gets along fine. No problem. We're all living in peace. Then you come along, the white man comes along and says, no, mate, you're going to use these little pieces of metal and pieces of paper and use this to trade with each other. And once they start doing that, they don't know how to live without it. They don't know how to go back to the old way. It affects your mind like a pathogen. People just can't comprehend what a world would be like if we didn't have money. It's an amazing program. Apparently it's based on Kabbalistic principles. I need to look into that more. But apparently it's like an algorithm. And it's this left brain algorithm and it just locks you in. So that's an interesting one. I mean, look, I don't know what all the solutions are to our problems at all. I don't have all the answers, and I don't pretend to. But I know that the people that are doing all of the problems are doing so because we're divided and we don't know who we are. We don't have the power to stand up together as a community and say, hey, we don't employ you to do this shit. Because that's ultimately it. They're just running rampant and they're stealing the wealth of the nation from us. You know, they do it by tricking people into believing ownership's real. Because, you know, if I can trick you, you don't own the earth, you can't own the earth. Like I said, the earth's been here for 4.6 billion years. It'll be here for another 100 billion. You're here for 50 or 100, you don't own shit. You may be custodian of a little place, but you don't own it. It owns you. You know, so if I can trick you into believing that you own part of the planet, and then I can enslave you to a monetary system which is designed to impoverish you and leave you destitute, then what you believe you own will transfer into my hands and you'll believe I own it. That's how you steal the world. You trick people into believing ownership is real. You trick people into believing they can actually own a planet that is a living entity that's been here for 4.6 billion years, and you're a fly speck in its history. It's a joke, you know, but that's how they've done it, you know. So I don't know what all the answers are, but I know we've got to rein these people in, and the only way we can do it is by respecting ourselves, respecting each other. We're only going to do that if we truly know ourselves, and that's why I go through that whole range of what you are. It's just a frequency of consciousness, and we're all beautiful, we're all perfect. Everybody's perfect, you know, no one can be you better than you. So, you know, deal with that, live with it, and express the art of your life. That's about all I'm going to say, folks, in my flesh.